Hello, I have just pulled out of our recipe box our Skillet Southern creamy cinnamon rolls. We're going to do those today in my cast iron black skillet, and that is for our next Southern dash of this and that segment. We are really excited about doing all of our baking and cooking segments here in my kitchen. Like I said, Jeff is wonderful to be my camera guy behind the scenes, so I thank you, Jeff, for that. We're going to go ahead and get started just putting the basics together here today, and this is going to start with 3/4 cup of warm water, and then of course you can't hardly ever do this without the wonderful Fleshman's yeast, and this is going to be the rapid rise. I'm going to put that down in there, pack it in, empty the packet, and then we're going to sit here and whisk all this together real good so that it can start activating to have those wonderful warm yeast rolls base that we have to have for the cinnamon rolls. So you want to whisk this together till it all dissolves, and then we're going to add our sugar, which is 1/4 cup of sugar, and we're going to put that down in there gently as we get ready to move forward here in just a minute. It's really important that you don't use, when we get ready to do the flour combination with it, metal at that point. So you'll want to use a really nice wooden spoon. So right now we're just trying to get this to get its activation. Okay, I just finished cracking the 2 eggs that we need for our creamy cinnamon rolls. So I'm going to slightly beat these eggs. And yes, I was peeking at my recipe, so I had to have my readers on. Whoops. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the 2 eggs slightly beaten, and this is going into that mixture that we did just a few minutes ago with the yeast and warm water. It is a 1/2 cup of oil. So put that all in there. Set that to the side. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just whisk this together. And then our next stage is bringing in the flour and the salt. And that's when we're going to use our wooden spoon. So I'm going to mix this all together really well. And you need to have a really big bowl like I've got, because once we get that dough going, we're going to put it all together. And then we're going to be able to put it somewhere really warm. I have preheated my oven at 250 degrees to just warm it up so it'll have a place to rise. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my flour, and it calls for 3 cups of bread flour, or you can use all-purpose flour for today's recipe, and that is going to be 3½ cups. There's a little bit of that southern dash of this and that there. And then we're going to put our salt in, and this is actually a 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And now we're going to go ahead and put this out of the way. We're going to take our wooden spoon and start mixing that together really well, scraping our sides. This is not something that you really want to put in your mixer because of the metal blades. You want everything to start fermenting with that yeast. So I'm going to show the camera there. If you can zoom in just a little bit, Jeff, to show them how it's kind of making the dough kind of pull together. And I am mixing that up really, really well. And when we come back, I will show you the dough out on the floured surface. Welcome back. We have gotten our dough out of the bowl where we had been mixing it really good. You can see it's already starting to get puffy and rising, which is what you really want to see. You want to make sure that you are getting all of that to start activating and working together. So all I'm doing now is out on a lightly floured surface. I use some all-purpose flour. I have just wanted to put the dough together here and start kind of getting it to combine itself up a little bit. You don't want to use too much flour, but of course in these first few stages you want to make sure that your hands are also covered with it so that you don't get too much of the stickiness on you. and we're going to sit here and work the dough for just a few minutes. And as we're working our dough, just wanted to say this is a really good base for dinner rolls or anything. But today we're going to be making those wonderful creamy cinnamon rolls. So I'm going to go ahead here and work the dough for a few minutes, and we will come back here in just a few minutes. Thank you. We are placing our dough ball that we have just rolled out. It is already starting to rise, and we've got to put this towel over this, and we're going to set it in a warm place, and we will be back to make our sauce. We're actually getting ready to do the filling for our creamy cinnamon rolls. I've still got the dough in the background. It's 24 minutes and still rising, so while we're doing that, we're going to prepare our filling. You may hear in the background a little bit of noise, and that is not just Jeff, but I'm making spaghetti for dinner. Okay, so we're going to start with a half a cup of packed brown sugar. We're going to use a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. This is optional. You don't have to add that if you don't want to. We have 3/4 teaspoon of the cinnamon. And then we need just a pinch of salt, and then you should have a stick, which is a half a cup of unsalted butter. So we're going to put all of this in this bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and mix it up and make it really fluffy, and the next step will be making our sauce. Hello, I just pulled out my cast iron skillet that's got my pecans, 1.5 cups of pecans roasting there. We're getting ready now to put our sauce together, and I've got a little small saucepan, and I'm going to put in a 3/4 cup of brown sugar. I'm going to do just a pinch of salt. I have another stick of unsalted butter that's going to be going in, and then we have a 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. And we're just going to pour all that together, and then I'm going to put it on my stove top and mix it till it gets all bubbly and soft, and then we will be putting everything together in a little while. Welcome back. I am just now pulling off the stove that wonderful creamy sauce for the caramel sauce. I'm going to pour it up here so you can see how wonderfully rich it is. The recipe calls for using molasses, but I didn't do that. I used Karo, and it still makes it really nice and creamy with a little lighter texture and a little richer. So you can see how wonderful that's going to look when we put that on there. And just a few minutes ago, my timer went off for the dough, so that means it needs to be punched down, and we're getting ready to do that here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned. Wonderfully, and I love treating myself with this in my kitchen during the holidays. We're getting ready to pour up 1 cup, and this isn't a whole cup, so you'll see me reserve a little bit of this back. We're going to put 1 cup in there, and then we're going to reserve the remaining, and you'll see that we're just going to let it coat the bottom of the pan, and we're going to set that aside. We'll be back in just a few minutes. We're going to do our punching down of the dough to make those cinnamon rolls. Hello, we are back. Finally got the dough where the timer went off for over an hour that it stayed in the warm zone of the near my oven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out and put it onto the floured surface, and I may have to help it come out of the bowl here. There we go. And what we're going to do now is we're going to punch this down. Let me set this aside. And we're going to put it on a lightly floured surface, and we want to just punch the dough and get all that air that's kind of accumulated in it out. And this is always, somebody says, good exercise, because you get to put a little bit of any frustrations you may have or whatever. So I always punch it down just like it says, just a little small fist. Just kind of punch all that dough down really well. Our next stage of what we're going to do once we get that kind of punched down is we're going to shape this out for those cinnamon rolls. So, you know, cinnamon rolls, they are really, really wonderful, as you know, but they do take some work and some time. So, you know, I set aside a really good rainy afternoon here because we've been expecting storms, which are starting to move into the area now. And I do hope everybody is safe and sound around me. I'm going to get ready here just now to go ahead and roll out with my hands, actually. I could use my roller, but I'm going to just do it while I have it here. You want to put this out, if you can, to about a 12-inch by 16-inch rectangle. And when you do that, you're going to be spreading it out kind of even. And the purpose of doing that is to get it ready to put it in that shape so that you can put your filling that we done earlier on here. And we're going to be rolling it up. And then we're going to make that classic shape of cinnamon rolls when we come back and put it in the skillet. Hello, I am now putting the nice filling that we put together earlier. You remember when we had to cream the butter and the sugar and got all the good ingredients together. This is actually the filling that we're going to put and spread it evenly onto the dough here, so that we can have it all nice and even, so when I get ready to roll it up in that classic cinnamon roll look, I'll be using floured hands to seam, you know, to put the seams together on it. And then we're going to be putting it into our skillet, all with those wonderful pecans too. Let me just put a little bit more. I'm getting really excited. We're into the final stages now. I'm going to put those roasted pecans that we put in the oven earlier in that black skillet when it was preheating at 350. And put that aside on top of that caramel sauce. And now I'm going to go ahead and roll up the dough with floured hands. Keep it kind of tight. Roll it as I go. If you feel it being a little bit sticky, just use a little bit more flour so that it'll roll up really nicely. And just keep on working it as you turn it over. And oh, it's just really done a great job with the rising. It's still very thick and nice. So what I'm going to do is use a little bit of flour here, and I'm going to seam the edges of it so that my filling won't be so sticky there on the edges. And we're going to come back and we're going to slice this and put it in the pan. Hello, we are in the process now of taking all that wonderful dough that we've put together with our cinnamon rolls. I'm using a very sharp knife that's been floured, and I'm placing the cinnamon rolls down into the iron skillet with that wonderful caramel sauce and the pecans coating on the bottom. So I'm just putting these down in here, and we will place all of them into the skillet, and here in just a few minutes we will be baking at 350. We've got these getting ready to go into the oven. I'm just going to brush these lightly with an egg wash, which is just one egg whisked with a little bit of water. And again, all of the details of this recipe will be provided in a card. So let's get ready to go in the oven. Welcome back. We are just finishing up those beautiful, wonderful, look how they turned out, great, creamy cinnamon rolls. So what I'm doing now is I'm just putting the last of our caramel sauce over them. And I've already got just a little bit of light pecans roasted on top. And I just put that in there. I don't know if you can hear the sizzle, but they are fresh out of the oven. So let me make sure I get all of that yumminess out. And we just wanted to thank you again for following us, liking us, sharing our post. We look forward to doing a whole lot more in this new year. So please follow us on Instagram at Southern Dash of This and That. And we appreciate you. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.